The site Phantoms and Monsters has several reports of apparent dogman attacks. One of these supposedly happened on a tract of forested land near the Ohio River in Maysville, Kentucky. The witness was a teen at the time with a group of other teens just out messing around, exploring an abandoned hospital in the area called Hayeswood Hospital. But this night was about to prove to be a bit more eventful than any of them could ever have imagined. They had split up to go poking around in the dusty ruins of the dilapidated hospital, and at some point, witnesses became aware of a fetid stench, like something rotting, as he was exploring the basement of the building, which accidentally had once been used as a morgue. The flooded floor was covered with about 3 inches of water, and as he sloshed through it, he then heard a metal door slam and something run through the water some distance away. The witness thought this was just his friends playing a practical joke on him, so he wasn't scared just yet, but he soon would be. He decided to get up on top of one of the long abandoned coolers that had once been used for storing dead bodies, hoping to get the jump on his friends and scare them. But as he lay there, he says the darkness was pierced by someone screaming. He still thought that one of his friends was just messing with him, so he stayed still. But soon that smell of rotting meat pervaded the air around him once more, and he could hear footsteps in the water, as well as a sound like panting or a labored breathing and sniffing. At this point, the witness was overcome by a sense of pure dread. Jumping down from the cooler to go running towards the exit to the morgue, hearing that panting and the water splashing right behind him, as well as an ominous low growl. In a panic, he slipped into the boiler room and stood as still as possible. As he waited there, something very large and strong allegedly started to slam into the door to the boiler room, and there was a sound like the scratching of claws against the steel. The terrified witness then ran towards the other end of the boiler room in a bid to reach the access to the generator and the dock doors trucks used to unload and the hillside that led to the woods. And he says of what happened next. I opened the door to the dock room, and when I looked back, I saw the arm of this creature sticking through the opening it had made, and it was like a horror movie. It was a gray and brown mass of fur. It looked like a human arm, but it didn't because the hand was all wrong. The hand had 5 digits, but the claws would have made a bear run in fear. I slammed the door behind me and I ran for the dock doors, but the dock doors wouldn't budge. I could hear the gurneys and overturning of lockers sliding on the floor. It was getting through the only thing between me and it. The only thing between us was a single door. I ran to one of the windows by the dock doors and proceeded to bust it out, which mangled my hand from the glass. I didn't care. Then, as I was pulling myself through the window, I heard the door get slammed into, and one of the hinges completely flew off the door and hit the wall. I tumbled out of the window and hit the cold, wet ground. When I stood up, I saw it in the doorway. Now listen, I'm 6'4" and 250 pounds, not little by any means. And this thing, it took up the entire doorway, an 8-foot tall, 3-foot wide door. It was covered head to toe in gray-brown fur. It had a very narrow snout, almost like a Doberman pinscher, and its ears were just barely visible because of the doorway. But I could tell they were pointing up just like a dog. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was completely paralyzed. This thing was staring right into my soul. Then it snarled, and that woke me from my disbelief of what I was seeing. I turned and ran. I ran up the hill into the woods to get around to the hospital, back to the street where the car was parked. I had not made it 25 feet when I heard it clawing to get out of the window. I knew I would never make it back to the car this way. So instead, I ran back towards the hospital where the fire escape ladder was. I had used the ladder before to climb to the roof to take pictures of the entire town. I completely skipped the first 3 rungs on the ladder and was now inside of the enclosed part of the fire escape. Again, this thing howled, and I could feel waves of pure terror filling my body. My hand was killing me at this point, and I was getting blood on everything. Just as I was reaching the first floor window I could climb into, this thing slammed into the fire escape ladder, knocking me down a couple rungs. It leaped onto the outside of the fire escape and began clawing at my feet. Just as I reached the window, I felt pain. Pain like nothing I've ever felt. It had grabbed just above my ankle and yanked, and in doing so, shredded my boot, the end of my jeans, and into my flesh. I was able to pull myself into the first floor window, and I heard it push itself off the fire escape and head back the way it came. The entrance we came in from, it's only about 150 feet away down the main hall and around a left turn. As I'm halfway down the hall, I hear steel doors slamming again. I'm dragging myself down the hall, trying to stay focused on getting out of this hellhole. Then the howling starts again, and I can hear it getting closer. I make the turn and hear the pounding coming up the stairs from the basement. I make it to the entrance and hear the patting of hands and feet on the floor. I made the mistake of looking back just as it rounded the corner, and it was running on all fours like a real dog, fast as hell. I bolted down the hill towards the street where the car was parked and realized the car was gone. They left me. I don't believe it. They left me. He claims that he careened off into the night, running down the hill to start banging on the door of the first house he came to. Luckily for him, an elderly lady let him in, and seeing the state he was in, called the police. When the authorities arrived, he told them his wild tale. But, of course, you guys know, they did not believe him. Or maybe they were covering up the fact that they knew. Despite the fact that he had injuries to corroborate his story, the witness says, when the cops got there and asked me what happened, I told them the same thing I've said here. Of course, they didn't believe me and thought I was on drugs. The EMTs took me to the hospital, and when they did blood work and found no substance in my system, then they concluded I was attacked by a wild dog. I ended up with 36 stitches in my leg and 17 in my hand. I had to get rabies shots and tell the local wildlife officer my story. He informed me that they had reports of wild dogs, packs running around the outside of town, ransacking garbage cans and killing some of the local pets. I informed him that it wasn't a pack of wild dogs and it was a giant dog man, but they all just thought I was crazy or, again, purposely acted that way. Don't underestimate what they know. The only thing I had in my favor was the claw mark on my leg. Even the doctors were confused about how a wild dog could make a mark like that. It is hard to know what to make of this case. It's so dramatic and spectacular that it has the feel of a movie script or creepy pasta. But who knows? I do. I don't see any reason why not to believe him. He has very convincing things happen to him. It is 100% possible. But as I always say, guys, it's up to you to decide.